Thank y'all so much for many of you been here every night, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and now the last night of this rendition of our family vacation Bible school, our forever family vacation Bible school is coming to an end, but a lot of other things are continuing and quickening our pace. Got big plans for tomorrow. Then if any of you are interested in going, we have, I guess, about 150 folks going to Trash Pandas game Friday night. We can help you get tickets for that. I don't know if you've ever been there on a Friday night, but I've always liked fireworks. And the fireworks show is unbelievably good for, kind of a small town thing. So we're looking forward to that. And we take over this year. We're taking over right field foul line over on the other side of first base. So anyhow, and then Sunday we come together to remember what Jesus has done for us, to celebrate God's goodness. And it may be the case that you don't presently have a church home. And maybe you're looking, we'd love to help you, love to discuss the scriptures with you, discuss what we're trying to do here in our corner of the world and literally around the world. I'm wearing a tie that says Save Ukraine. I got it in the mail yesterday from a good sister in Christ over in Ukraine. She's very talented. Vera is her name, Vera Sopelnik. She is mother of two precious girls. Her husband is one of the directors of a Bible school over there. And she is due to have their third daughter basically during Camp Americrane in a few weeks. So we're excited about that. And won't you please to be praying for Dennis and Vera and their family. But this is just a really awesome tie that she has a little company, a little business where she makes all kinds of beautiful things. And so if you want something like this, let me know and I'll let Vera know and she'll be happy to help you out with this. We're going to finish our time together tonight in this class by looking at the parable that some people call the pearl of all the parables. Some people call this the parable of the prodigal son. And I get that. I've said that of that parable many times myself, parable of the prodigal son. But really, isn't it the father in that particular parable who is the hero? He is the one that should really be getting the headlines. He's the one who has so much love for his son, so much forgiveness for his son, who has broken his heart, kind of like we've all at some point or another broken the heart of our Father. But he loves us, eager to forgive us, eager to allow us the gift of a precious homecoming. The devil is very good at getting us to do bad things, getting us to do foolish things. He's made fools of everybody that's ever lived to adulthood except for the Son of God. I am reminded of a story that took place back well over 100 years ago. It was actually in an English village, and there were some mischievous boys in that village. And they were known to play pranks on people and have fun at doing some not such good things, right? Well, this particular village had a great tradition. I would call it a great tradition. During Christmas time every year, everybody would gather at the center of town. And they would have a big Christmas tree there. And there'd be lots of gifts under the Christmas tree. And they made sure that every child in the town got one of those gifts. And it was a great celebration. Everybody looked forward to it every year. Well, on this particular year, these three mischievous boys decided we're going to do something that we think be pretty funny. But it was something actually that was really cruel. There was a boy in that town. He was adult in body, but he was child in his thinking. He was a child still in his heart. And even though he was full grown on the outside, he was rather immature on the inside. And he didn't understand that he was full grown. He didn't understand that he was in some ways a man. He thought himself to be a child. And so, in the center of the village, underneath that Christmas tree, he expected that he would have a gift that day. And so he's in the crowd with great anticipation, and a name is called and a gift is given to a child, and another name is called and a gift is given to that child. And he keeps waiting to hear his name. And the pile of gifts is getting smaller and smaller, and he's getting sadder and sadder now. So he's starting to figure out there's nothing under the tree for me. And finally, there are no gifts left. And everybody starts to scatter. Everybody's happy except for the boy. As he turns to walk away, one of those mischievous boys yells out to him, "Wait, there is a gift for you." And the boy is so happy, he comes running back towards the tree with great eagerness, excitement. And these boys hand him the package, and it's so pretty. The paper is so shiny and bright, colorful, and there's a beautiful bow wrapped around it. And they hand it to the boy, and he tears into the paper, takes the bow off, opens up the box with great enthusiasm, and the box is empty. It's absolutely empty. And those mischievous boys, they just laugh and they just make fun of this child. And he's crushed, this young man is. He's absolutely devastated. And as the story goes, he walked away from that Christmas tree that day, and he never returned. He never returned. He never recovered from the broken heart of the prank gone bad, of the package that looked so beautiful but was not as advertised. It was completely empty. And that, my friends, is what the devil has done to me, and he has done to thee, and he does to everybody. He takes sin which separates us from God, which wipes the smiles off our faces, which breaks our heart, God's heart, hearts of everybody that loves us. He puts sin in this attractive package. It looks so good. And some people, we people at times maybe have become so foolish in pursuit of it. And when we got it, we realized it's not as advertised. It's really empty. We got to be careful. We got to be careful for what we prize. We got to be careful for what we pursue in this life. As we've been focusing on every night of our family vacation Bible school, there is a treasure that is to be chased. There is a treasure that is worth the effort. And that is the heavenly treasure. That is the path that Jesus wants us to walk. So in Luke 15, we see a boy, a prodigal son. The word prodigal is not actually in the original text. It's in some translations, but it means wasteful. And that boy is very similar to the young man at the Christmas tree in the village a long time ago. He was fooled. He was horribly, horribly fooled. He thought, if I can just be free, if I can just have my daddy's money and a big chunk of my daddy's heart, and I can go into a far country and I'll be popular and I'll be happy and there'll be no rules, there'll be no consequences. But he was so wrong. He was dead wrong, wasn't he? But the wrong was something he could recover from. The wrong was something he could be forgiven of. And that's our story also. As we examine Luke 15, we see the prodigal boy. But it's a mirror chapter. When we see that, I see myself in that story. Maybe several layers, maybe several characters in that parable remind me of me. And maybe several that you see in that remind you of you. Would you join me now in turning to Luke 15? I led a prayer just a few moments ago, so we'll proceed into our study without further prayer. But we do have many good people that we need to be lifting up, we need to be ministering to. Chris Butler is on the way back to the Shoals now. He'll be staying at JW Summer, and we're thankful for that good news. Sister Ann Skidmore, we learned today that she has some good news from her doctor's report. Her treatments are being very productive for her. We're thankful for that. And just a lot of good prayers are being answered, and we're very thankful for that. Barbara Rich, she had her surgery, very significant surgery, and that operation went well. So again, God continues to bless many people. This is Luke 15, beginning with verse 11. A certain man, you're familiar with this, but stay engaged. A certain man had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, "Father, give me." Probably never been a more selfish phrase uttered than those. Give me. That's our generation, right? From the me generation to the give me generation. Give me the portion of good that falls to me. Why such an insensitive request? Why couldn't he wait until father passed and he could inherit what he would inherit along with his older brother? He's tired of the rules, maybe. Tired of being told what to do. Tired of having a curfew. Again, he's in pursuit of freedom. He's tired of the word no. We understand that freedom is a great thing. We have it in Jesus, but also there's another a fake freedom that can feel good, but it has some consequences. I can jump off of a 20-foot or 20-story high building and I'm free, but there are consequences to that freedom. The law of gravity is not going to be defeated by my freedom. And I can be free, but my freedom does not suspend God's laws, God's boundaries for me, right? There are consequences to a pursuit of a certain kind of freedom that takes us away from the Father. So he wants to be free. And you notice that phrase there at the end of verse 12. So he, the Father, divided to them, both boys, to them his livelihood. Some translations say he divided his life. It was his life's work, his life savings. He'd worked so hard for this treasure. And now he's giving a big portion of it to the younger son. And he divided to them his livelihood. By the way, if you're wondering how the math works on this, the older son in a family would get 2/3 of the father's inheritance or the father's property, and the younger son's children would receive 1/3. So if there were like 10 children, the oldest of the 10 would get 2/3, and the other 9 would divide up the 1/3. Verse 13, and not many days after, the son gathered all together. He's gathering now, and soon he's going to be scattering. He gathered all and journeyed to a far country. Important point, we don't have to go far to be in a far country. We'll see as we develop this thought further, but both boys leave the father. Only one left the house. So we can be in the house and be away from the father. Journeys to a far country, and there wasted his possessions, wasted his dad's possessions with prodigal or wasteful living. And then 14 says, but when he had spent all, that doesn't seem to have taken long, does it? What dad spent decades accumulating, it looks like the boy lost in just a few days. He spent all. And then notice, there arose not just a famine in that land, but a severe famine in that land, and he began to be in want. The boy who literally had it all: popularity, youthfulness, lots of money, lots of earthly treasure, and with that came lots of fake friends who were like leeches, just sucking from him what they could. And when the money was gone, when the party's over, they're gone. Maybe you know people like that. People that are kind of into you for what they can get from you. And now his life is plummeting. And we can reasonably ask, how's freedom working out? Not the way he anticipated. Now these consequences, they're going to come rolling in rather quickly, right? He had spent all. There arose a severe famine in the land. By the way, there's always a famine in the land where there is no God, in the heart where there is no God, in the family where there is no God, in the church where there is no God. And he began to be in want. Then he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into his fields to feed swine. Worst possible job a Jewish boy could have. Pigs were filthy, literally, spiritually filthy to the Jewish people. They hated pigs. They didn't eat barbecue like we do, right? And to go into such a filthy place and to spend time with these animals and feed these animals, that would have been a repulsive thing. That gives us some idea of his desperation. And the next line says, and he wants to eat with them. Yeah. Have ever been in one? My daddy raised pigs. Don't make a joke about that. My daddy raised pigs. Yeah, let me tell about that. My dad was going to get rich. Anybody raise pigs besides me and my daddy? A few of you. Did y'all get rich raising pigs? Well, y'all probably did, but my daddy, at the height of his pig kingdom, we had 50 pigs. And that was a massive undertaking because my dad had his regular job and he'd come in at the end of the day. My grandparents owned a restaurant back when poor people could have a restaurant. And we would, at the end of the day, blame Brother Smith for this because he incited this thought. End of the day, it'd be my job to get in the back of the pickup truck with my daddy and go feed these pigs the slop. Now, I don't know if you've ever done that. But that's an interesting endeavor. The pigs would hear the truck, bouncing along. And my job in the back of the truck was to keep the slop from getting out of the bucket, and that's the buckets, and that's, hard. How do you do that? And the pigs, man, they'd be all over that part of the farm, and so much mud and filth, and we had the wooden troughs, and they'd hear that truck coming, they'd come squealing in every direction, and they'd line up there at that trough, and we'd get the slop, and we'd pour it in the buckets, and we're spilling it on just disgusting, smelly business. And I've been hungry at times. You've been hungry. But I've never been so hungry I would see something as disgusting as that and say, I like some of that. Give me a spoon. That never crossed my mind. That's how pathetic the prodigal's life has now become. He's seeing the visual that you've seen in your mind, and he's saying, I'm starving here, and there's nothing better than that for me. That's the best available option. Again, that tells us something of the nature and the journey of sin, where sin leads. Think about this boy's life. He was a spoiled son. Then he's a swinging single. And now, to continue the S's, he's slinging slop to smelly swine. He's gone from playboy to pig boy, right? Again, that's sin. It always leads there. We preachers, we say, what about sin? You may say this too. It takes us further than we want to go, keeps us longer than we ever intended to stay, costs us more than we ever intended to pay. That's this boy. That's that is sin. That he's opened the package and a bunch of pigs inside of it, or worse, right? And you notice how the story continues then. There's certain things that jump off the page at me. We're about to see one of those great phrases. He would gladly fill his stomach with the pods that the swine ate, and no one gave him anything. Well, his father gave him a lot, and he blew it. And here's the statement, that one that just really jumps off the page at us, doesn't it? First part of 17. But when he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger? I'm wanting to eat with pigs, and I could be eating with my father. I could be eating with the servants, would be better than with these pigs. He came to himself. He's done nothing of any virtue until right now. He comes to himself. He's not in denial. He understands the depravity, the ugliness of his predicament, of his situation. He doesn't try to pretend that a pig pen is a palace. He doesn't try to think, well, this isn't so bad. The smell, the sound, it could be worse. He recognizes the situation as it really is. There's a lot of wisdom in that we also need to incorporate into our lives, because we can get into sin or be on the journey into that pig pen, and we can say, well, it's not so bad. I don't read my Bible much anymore. I'm not praying so much. I'm watching some things with some strong language, attitude, I'm letting some words slip out of my mouth. I'm going to some websites on occasion. I'm not so keen for worship anymore. It's been a while. It's not so bad. There are worse things. And we're in denial. When we're in a pig pen, and figuratively, that's where we are when we're away from that is the famine land. And we just need to do like this boy who's wisening up, he's smartening up now, and he came to himself. He realizes, this is not who I am. This is not who I was raised to be. And then you notice the story gets better. He practices this speech. I'm going to rise and go to my father, and I'm going to say, Father, you love this statement. Can you say that? Can I say this? I have sinned. Not her, not him, not them. I have sinned against heaven and before you. He realizes, I've broken two fathers' hearts, the one in heaven and the one in the house. I've sinned against both of them. And I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. So what's happening here? In his mind, he's saying, I can't be a son anymore. I can be a servant. Now we're going to see later, even though the boy is unwilling to keep on being a son, the father is not willing to cease being a father. It's a beautiful picture here. Go back to that phrase, I have sinned, taking personal responsibility for his choices. That also is a phrase that jumps off the page. He could have blamed. Isn't that easy? Isn't that the oldest game that we read about, even first pages of Genesis? Adam's blaming Eve, blaming God for giving Eve to him, and Eve's blaming the serpent. Nobody's just raising their hand and saying, I'm the one that sinned. I'm accepting responsibility for this. Well, this young man, kind of like David, when David was in sin, I have sinned. And he's not saying that this is my father's fault. Dad, why didn't you lock me up in my room? Why'd you give me the money? Why'd you let me go? He didn't say of the older brother, you're bigger, you're stronger, you knew the ways of the world. You could have stopped me. You could have talked me out of this. You could have whipped me if necessary and kept me at home. He could have named a pig after both of them, right? He could have been vindictive. But he didn't do that. He so wisely said, he's come to himself, and then he said, I have sinned. And so, the story gets even better. Verse 20, another one of these phrases that jumps off the page, and he arose. All right, he's made a decision. He's come to himself. I'm going to go home to the Father's house. And then he acts on the decision without delay. Again, he understands the longer he's in the pig pen, the worse the circumstance. The smell's not going to improve. You know, it's going to turn into filet mignon. The taste of it's going to get worse. Everything about his predicament is going to get worse the longer he's in it. And that is our story. The longer we're in sin, the harder it is to get out of it, the dirtier we become, the more comfortable we become in it. Thankfully, he didn't stay in that situation long enough to get comfortable there. And so he acts on the good decision. I'm going to go home, and he arose and he heads for home. Think about this. Think about how many, maybe not us in this room, but others certainly are guilty of this, of making grandest of decisions. I'm going to read my Bible more. I'm going to pray more. I'm going to stop watching Yellowstone or something filthy on Netflix. Anybody? I'm going to have a better attitude. I'm going to forgive somebody who's hurt me. I'm going to invite my neighbor to come to church. I'm going to ask somebody for prayers. I'm going to be immersed in water for the remission of all my sins. I mean, lots and lots of good decisions. Making decisions, good decisions, can be an easy thing. Following through on them. You know, see, here's what happens sometimes, maybe even in church, right? We have a great worship experience, right? We're drawn closer to God as worship Him in spirit and in truth. Maybe even the sermon was motivational, and we've made some concrete, specific decisions of positive life changes we're going to make. But then there's lunch, and then there's a nap, and then there's Monday. And there's life, and there's school, and there's work, and there's doctor's appointments, and there's just life comes pouring in. And then we realize I didn't act on those good decisions that I made. The time to act on the good decisions is the moment we understand that this is a decision I need to be making without delay, without hesitation. Let me catch my breath. What comments? Anybody? Yeah, Larry?
One of the phrases is that no man gave him anything. Kind of sounds sad that no one would, but that's the greatest blessing he ever had.
Amen.
If they'd have given him something, he'd stayed right where he was.
Mm-hmm.
I think today we give people stuff, and it keeps them in a bad spot. If we didn't give them anything, they'd come to their senses and give up.
That is don't miss that point. Now, that point's even worth being in class tonight. And I've preached this, studied this literally all my life. But that's a good point, because he's talking about a common thing that we can get into in enabling behavior, that we make the pig pen life possible. We sustain it. We mean well. Well, nobody wants to hurt somebody in prolonging, but that is a favor. He did not have a ring of people around him throwing him burgers and pizzas, for a ludicrous example. There's nobody there keeping him in that place, except maybe for his own stubbornness or whatever. It wasn't the pay, so he, excellent, thank you. Anybody else? Be hard to top that one, but try. No pressure. All right. He arose, came to his father. Now, you're going to see, one of the awesome things about Christianity are our verbs. Pray, worship, love, give, serve, so many. And you're going to see some great verbs now in this parable. He arose, came to his father, but while he was still a great way off, his father saw him, father's looking, had compassion, verbs, ran, verb, fell on his neck, hugging him, kissing him, all wonderful verbs. A lot of this coming from the father, who is the hero. He's the bright light in this, what has been a rather dark story. And he is in the role of the place of God here, isn't he? Our Father. He runs to the sinner who's coming home. He runs to his boy. He ran and fell on his neck, kissed him. I'm guessing Junior hadn't had a bath in a long time. And his father's still hugging on him and kissing on him. The father said to him, Father, I have sinned. There's that good line again, that good statement. I have sinned against heaven and your sight. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. But, verse 22, I've underlined that word twice in my Bible. But the father said to his son, he's not even talking to the returning son, the repentant son at this point. He turns to the servants. Bring out the best robe, and so on. You notice here, the father doesn't say, why do you smell like pigs? Do you realize what a terrible thing you have done? You ought to be ashamed to show your face. There's no hint. There's nothing like, there's not even a probationary period of time where he's got to come home and he's got to make his bed, and he's got to be in his room by 9 o'clock every night. He's got to be a yes, sir, no, sir, thank you. He's got to take out the there's not a list. If you do all this, maybe you get a pair of shoes. Maybe you get a robe. I mean, it's just, he's come home, and the Father has welcomed him. There, again, is such a powerful, not just visual for us, but application for us, to not be so keen to place undue expectations on a returning soul, and not have a litmus test that they got to continue. All right, you're back, but I'm not sure this is genuine, so I'm going to be watching you real close. You don't get a hint of that with the Father. No, you see how generous the Father is? The best robe, not just some old raggy thing in the closet, the best one. And put it on him. Why is he getting a robe? Because he needs a robe. Put a ring on his hand. What happened to, he left with lots of rings probably. Put a ring on his hand. He needs a ring. Sandals on his feet. He needs some shoes. I mean, the boy has lost everything, including his pride. And then notice this beautiful line. And bring the fatted calf here and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. Why a fatted calf? It's like the Father had been preparing this animal, knowing that one day my son is going to come to himself and come back home. He's going to realize what a foolish person he's been. And, he didn't call for, those skin and bones tied up behind the barn. The fatted calf, the one that had been prepared for a grandest of celebrations. And this picture is valid in our lives, isn't it? We also have a Father that is eager to forgive, to give us not what we want, but what we need. Not what we deserve, but what we need. It's a beautiful picture of grace. What does this boy deserve? He deserves a beating. He deserves to be a servant, if even that. But he needs this other list, and that's what he receives. And that's what you and I receive from the Father. We know what we deserve. We deserve an eternity of horror. But we need the heavenly place. We need the heavenly treasures. We need forgiveness. We need a robe, ring, shoes, fatted calf, which is another way of saying we need Jesus Christ. We need Jesus Christ. And we see ourselves here. You wonder what that prodigal looks like. You got a mirror? That's him. That's him. When I see the prodigal, I need to see somebody who wears glasses, got a distinguished looking gray beard, follically challenged. That's who I need to see when I see the prodigal. If I see somebody that can be forgiven, I see somebody that can be welcomed home. Let us eat and be merry. Why? Verse 24 gets right to the crux of this. For this my son was dead, not wounded, not needing Band-Aids, not needing vitamins. He's dead. What do dead people need to live? They need resurrection. Our Father specializes, as we know, in raising the dead, in giving life back. And that's what happens. And that's what did happen. He was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to be merry. They began to celebrate because what was lost had been found. In this chapter of our Bible, it is a significant detail to note that three things get lost. A sheep is lost, a coin is lost, a boy is lost. They're all lost in different ways, but they're all lost. And they're all found, in a sense, in different ways. The common denominator to emphasize is the celebration. It is the joy of the finding of them. Why does Jesus tell in this chapter? Of course, he didn't divide it into chapters. A guy named Stephanus did much later. But why does he tell three stories right here in close succession of three things lost and three things found? Lots of reasons, I'm sure. Lots of reasons. But one of those might be to instruct us in how it is that people even today get lost. Some people, for example, get lost like a sheep gets lost. How does a sheep get lost? A sheep is a careless animal, not the brightest of things. Just kind of wanders out of the pasture and then can't find its way home. Some people get lost that way. We don't wake up and determine I'm going to go away from the Father. I'm going to go away from my raising. But we just get careless, right? Just get distracted by things of the world. And we just find ourselves in a place we never thought we would be. And we just can't figure out how to get home. And remember, someone went and found that sheep. And a lesson for us is there are lots of sheep in the hills, the pastures, the woods around us. And maybe they're out there thinking nobody cares. Don't miss me. We know that's not true. We need to demonstrate that. But the sheep got lost on carelessness, and some people get lost the same way. But then the coin was lost. How did the coin get lost? Coin got lost through the carelessness of the woman, remember. Coins don't just roll away. They don't decide, I'm going to disappear. They get lost because oftentimes we are careless with them. People can get lost that way. I want to suggest that nobody gets lost specifically and exclusively because of the carelessness or the insensitivity of another person. But by our carelessness or by our insensitivity, we can contribute to a condition that would lead someone to be more likely to drift away from the Father and from the Father's family. People are fragile. People are sensitive. Some people come into the church, it seems, looking for a reason to leave the church. And the ultimate reason people leave the church is because they want to leave the church more than they want to stay. That's the fundamental reason. But there are contributors to that. We can unintentionally be kind of oblivious to what somebody else may be going through. We might say something unintentionally that can be rather hurtful, and we've just got to be aware of how we might come across. We need to pray for wisdom in our interactions with each other. I was thinking earlier and watching some skits during our week here, our half week here, of what people need and what we think we need, what we want, different things, and how we can help each other. And they were talking about what is a good thing? One night they talk about what is a good thing you and I can do for somebody, kind of a way to lay up for ourselves treasure in heaven. And I was thinking about a rather poignant moment in my life where I was visiting an older lady in a congregation, not this one, but a really sweet lady, and I had been to see her like I needed to, and that's on me 100%. And I went to see her, just such a lovely visit, such a wonderful lady, stayed there a long time, and I enjoyed every moment, and honestly, I think she enjoyed it as much or more than I did. And, just kind of working my way to the door. You ever have those, just kind of working your way step by step to the door. And, we just we have a line. It's almost like a throwaway line, but we mean it. We mean it, but it's almost a goodbye line that we say, hey, if there's ever anything I can do for you, let me know. And she stopped me. She said, I'll tell you what you can do for me. I'm thinking, oh, no. What have I gotten myself into? I said, yes, ma'am, what can I do? And with all the seriousness she could muster, she said, you can listen to me. You can listen to me. That's what a lot of people need. They need us just to slow down and listen. Because they got nobody. If you're not listening to them and I'm not, who's listening to them? The kids are busy. Grandkids are, spouse is in heaven. A lot of folks, they got physical issues, emotional, and they just need, one of the greatest gifts we can give somebody is our time. You spell love L-O-V-E, but you can also spell it T-I-M-E. We can give people our time. We can give people our ears. We can listen to them. And listening maybe helps somebody to stay spiritually home with the Father. They don't care about me. Nobody listens. Nobody, more easy to drift away, it seems. So you got the sheep through his carelessness gets lost. The coin through the carelessness was maybe major contributor to the lostness of the coin. Some people get lost that way. And then you got the boy. And it's nothing but rebellion. There's nothing but rebellion going on with him. He just made the decision. He woke up one morning and I'm out of here. I'm out. It seemed like he'd been plotting it for a while and he's gone. And some people do that. Some people just decide, rules? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm, as you know, like many of you, emotionally involved in Ukraine. Been going there for 30 years. Can't believe it, 30 years. Going there since I'm, 5 years old? 30 years. And one of the reasons some of the Christians became Christians in those early days, times were really tough. The Soviet Union had collapsed, and you go to a store, there wasn't much bread. Restaurants really weren't happening back in those days, and there's a lot of poverty. A lot of people lost everything. Their life savings, inflation went crazy, and they lost everything when they got their freedom. And so it was a ripe environment for people being interested in heavenly treasures and Christianity and Jesus and lots about. My first trip, 14, were about, and in a European country, that's unheard of, right? And a lot of things happening like that. But some of those people, when they realized that Christianity didn't mean that their pantry would be full of bread and their bank account would have lots of money in it, they decided, I'm not going to be able to stay with this. And they fell away. They fell away. And we still try to maintain contact and try to restore, try to talk about the heavenly treasures. There are a lot of reasons people leave the Father. There's not a good one. Not one of them is good. And maybe you are somewhere that you don't need to be, figuratively speaking. Not in the Father's house anymore, or maybe in his house physically, but not emotionally, spiritually, not really there, just kind of there symbolically, but not really there. I hope that our time together has helped to prompt us to to understand just how much we are loved, just how vast the Father's treasure chest is. And just as that boy came home, we can come home. And you know the rest of the story. There's an older brother who's got a sorry attitude, don't you imagine that younger brother is anticipating some of that? You know, he figures his father will give him a job, but probably that older brother, there's some history there. There's some issues there. You know, we can't let people get in the way of us being how we need to be with the Father. You know, what's that saying? If we allow a hypocrite to come between us and God, who's closer to God? You know, that hypocrite between, you know. So we don't want that. All right, it's about time to go get some awesome refreshments and have good fellowship. Do you have a closing thought? Anybody? A question, comment that you want to? It is so good to be with you tonight. It'll be good to be with you Sunday morning, 9 o'clock. Can you get the kids up? Get them up for school with great enthusiasm, right? So I hope you'll consider coming back and being with us this coming Sunday morning at 9. Also, and then after our worship of great Bible classes, as I'm sure you know, after we have our time of refreshments and all, the kids are going to come in here, have their closing ceremonies. You may want to come and participate in that with them. Then they're going to go out there, and there are a lot of those jumping things available for them to have fun with that. And please let them hang around and do that for a while. There are some snow cones out there that they'll, you know, sugar-free, hopefully, so they won't be up all night. Anyhow, that's just kind of part of it, and it's a joy of being a parent and a grandparent. We've had grandkids spending the night with us the last few nights. Can you tell? And they stay up late and they get up early, and it's a wonderful thing, because one day we might not have them around to keep us awake and to bug us and want to spend time and want to play with us and go to VBS. God is good. He really is. Thank you for being here. Let's pray together one more time, please. Father, thank you so much for children. Thank you for your love for us as your children. Thank you for forgiving us, for giving us your grace, what we need but surely don't deserve. Thank you for these parables Jesus has told us about where treasures that matter, that have true value, can be found. Help us, Father, to come to you, to stay with you. Help us to pursue those who maybe have strayed from the family, and help us to have the wisdom, have the love to bring them home. Thank you again for the privilege of being here with special people. Help us to look forward to Sunday. Thank you for those who have done so much to make this happen. Thank you for those who prepared our food for us. In Jesus we pray. Amen.